You are a nobody. Don't pretend you matter, my mom said. Honestly, we forget you exist half the time, my brother added. So I clinked my fork against my glass and said, "This won't take long, just 3 sentences." By the second, my mom's face had gone pale. I didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even blink, because when you grow up with people like mine, you learn to wear your face like armor. You learn not to react, at least not in ways they can use against you later. But yeah, that was how brunch started. They call it brunch, but let's be honest. It's just Sunday lunch with mimosas and extra judgment. The menu changes, but the vibe never does. We were halfway through some aggressively dry quiche when my mom decided it was time for her usual performance review. She likes to treat these family meals like annual performance evaluations, except I never got the job to begin with. "You are a nobody," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. "Don't pretend you matter." And Ryan, my younger brother, whose biggest life accomplishment so far is existing at the same time as a Wi-Fi signal, added, "Honestly, we forget you exist half the time." He laughed like it was a good one, like we were all in on the joke. I didn't laugh. I just reached for my glass, nothing dramatic, just a casual little clink with the side of my fork, and said, "This won't take long, just 3 sentences." They both looked up mid-bite. "Please," I said, framing Dad, "this copy's for you." Then I pulled a folder out of my bag, plain black, nothing flashy, and slid it across the table. No big speech, no raised voice, just a little nudge across the linen tablecloth. Ryan looked confused, like he thought I was handing out resumes. Mark, the husband my mom married when I was 15 and stopped calling my dad the second the ink dried, leaned forward like he expected concert tickets. But my mom, she didn't move. She just stared at it. Eventually, she reached for the folder and opened it. Page 1, then 3, and I watched it happen. That slow-motion expression shift, like someone realizing the brakes don't work and the wall's a lot closer than they thought. Her fingers started to shake a little. Mark went from smug to pale. Ryan's fork hovered in midair, like he wasn't sure if he should keep eating or run. She hit the last page. "You little bitch," she said, almost under her breath. Mark stood up, chair scraping loudly across the tile. "You said you deleted that stuff." I stood too, adjusted my sweater, picked up my bag. "The originals are already with people who matter," I said. "This is just for your personal enjoyment." And then I walked out. Let's rewind for a second. Technically, I'd moved back in with them about 3 months before this lovely family brunch. Told them I couldn't afford my apartment anymore. Said I was struggling, needed help. My mom was reluctant to take me in. And by reluctant, I mean she said yes, but made it clear she expected rent, chores, and zero attitude. Ryan lives there too, by the way. No job, no rent, no chores. He contributes absolutely nothing except dirty dishes and the occasional opinion no one asked for. I got the laundry room. Not the guest room, not your old room, the laundry room. There's still a dryer in there. It rattles at night like it's possessed. And every time it shook the wall, I reminded myself, just a little longer, just until I found what I needed. Because I wasn't there to bond. I wasn't there because I had nowhere else to go. I was there because I knew there were things they never expected me to find, and I planned to find them. But none of that showed on my face at brunch. At brunch, I poured the orange juice. I passed the butter. I smiled when Mark made his weird, fake jokes about millennials not knowing how to do laundry. Ironic, since I was the one literally doing his. I said thank you when my mom handed me a napkin, like she'd just done me a favor. No one asked how work was going. No one asked what I was working on. The closest I got to attention was, "Do you still drive that little car?" I got a mug that said somebody's favorite daughter for Christmas, which is hilarious considering I'm pretty sure they forgot to wrap it until that morning. Ryan got a new smartwatch and a trip to Cancun for his mental health. I got to vacuum the stairs. So yeah, the moment at brunch, it wasn't planned. Not really. But it felt ready, and when I saw her face go pale, when I saw Mark's eyes flick to the door like he was calculating how long it would take to make a run for it, when I saw Ryan finally shut up for once, I knew I'd hit the vein. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to tell the truth, and I wasn't even close to done. You know how some people talk about their childhood like it was a sitcom? Lots of inside jokes, weird family traditions, embarrassing birthday party stories that everyone laughs about now? Yeah, that wasn't mine. My childhood was less Full House and more Survivor, minus the prize money. From the outside, we looked normal. Holiday cards with forced smiles, family vacations that somehow made it into scrapbooks, a fridge covered in Ryan's terrible school drawings like he was the next Picasso. But inside, it was like growing up in a group project where I was the only one doing any work and still getting blamed for the bad grade. Ryan was always the star, the golden child, the one who could break things and be called spirited. I once knocked over a cup of juice and got sent to my room for being careless and dramatic. At one point, I seriously started to wonder if they had just forgotten I was there. There was this one day, I was 9, when I came home excited because I'd won this small art contest at school. Wasn't a big deal, but I was proud. I showed my mom the certificate. She looked at it and said, "You really should focus more on science. Art won't get you anywhere." Ryan brought home a participation ribbon for Best Listener the same week. She framed it. That kind of stuff adds up. It wears you down in ways that don't show on the outside. You start to question if maybe you're the problem. Maybe you really are, just less interesting, less likable, less worthy. The only person who didn't treat me like an afterthought was my dad. He wasn't flashy or dramatic. He didn't go around giving speeches or trying to win Parent of the Year. But he showed up. He helped with homework, made the best grilled cheese on the planet, let me ramble about books I was reading, and actually remembered what I said. He was steady, quiet. I didn't understand why my mom was always so annoyed with him, like just existing in the same room was a personal insult, but she treated him the same way she treated me, which in hindsight says a lot. Still, I didn't question anything, not until the day everything cracked open. I was 12, sitting in the living room, eating dry popcorn and watching a show I didn't care about. Ryan was upstairs. Mom was on her phone. She turned off the TV and said she needed to show me something serious. That's never a good start. She scrolled through her messages, held out the screen, and said, "This is from your father. You need to see what kind of man he really is." The message was short, just one line: "If you take her, I'll kill you both." I remember staring at the screen, not fully processing it, like my brain just glitched. She told me he was dangerous, that she'd always known something was off about him, that she was filing for full custody to protect me. She rubbed my back like she was the hero in all this, said I didn't need to be scared anymore. I didn't even cry right away. I just sat there stunned, like someone had pulled the floor out from under me, and I was still mid-fall. Then came the court stuff, the silence, the new rules, no phone calls, no visits, no, "We'll figure it out," just done. My dad was erased overnight, like someone edited him out of the script, and I was told to be grateful. What followed were the rebuilding years, as my mom once called them, which is hilarious because she never rebuilt anything. She just rearranged the control panel. I became her emotional punching bag, her live-in help, the kid she didn't want but had to manage. Ryan got louder, lazier, meaner. I got invisible. She stopped pretending we were a family. It was clear I was there because she didn't want the optics of sending her daughter to live with someone she claimed was unstable. But the love, the softness, the basic human decency, gone. I didn't think about my dad for a long time. Not really. I shoved him into a box labeled dangerous and closed the lid. But some things don't stay buried, especially not when they never made sense to begin with. There were too many things that didn't line up, too many moments when I'd hear someone talk about their dad and feel this weird ache, like I was grieving a death no one acknowledged, and the message itself just never felt right. My dad wasn't that guy. He was the guy who cried watching Finding Nemo, the guy who apologized if he raised his voice even a little, the guy who told me he loved me every single time we talked. But I never said anything out loud, because if you start questioning one lie, you have to question all of them. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Fast forward to my 20s. The ache got louder, the questions got heavier, and one day I picked up my phone and sent a message to a number I wasn't even sure still worked. I said, "Hi, I don't know if this is still your number, but I wanted to say hello. Leah." He responded 15 minutes later, and that's when everything started to unravel. I didn't go back. Not after brunch. Not after the folder hit the table and Mom's face did that thing where her expression crumpled, but her pride wouldn't let it finish the job. I walked out and didn't turn around. Didn't take leftovers. Didn't even grab my coat. Wasn't that cold, and honestly, I needed the dramatic walk more than I needed sleeves. I checked into a short-term rental under a fake last name, nothing dramatic, just enough to keep things quiet while the blast radius settled. 2 hours later, my brother texted me, "What the hell did you just do?" Followed by, "Mom's having a meltdown. Mark's yelling. They won't tell me what's going on." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I really did want to let them sit in it. Let them sweat through their polo shirts and wonder how the whole house of lies suddenly caught fire. I wish I could say I had a master plan from day one, but the truth is, it started as a hunch on a really bad night. I was 23. I couldn't sleep. I'd been thinking about that message for weeks, the one Mom showed me when I was 12. If you take her, I'll kill you both. The thing that made me cut my dad out of my life like he was a cancer. The thing that made me scared of my own memories. But the older I got, the more it didn't add up. My dad was the kind of guy who made pancakes in the shape of animals, who used phrases like safety first, unironically. He wasn't the send violent death threats type. So one night I texted him, "Hi. I don't know if this is still your number, but I wanted to say hello." He replied 15 minutes later, "Leah, I've been waiting 10 years for this." We met in a park 3 days later, neutral territory. I half expected him to look different, colder, like maybe the version I remembered was just childhood wishful thinking. He looked the same, just a little grayer, a little smaller. We sat on a bench and made it all the way to the second cup of coffee before I asked about the message. He didn't flinch, just shook his head slowly and said, "I didn't write it. I didn't send it. I never would." He didn't beg, didn't cry. He just said he was sorry. I believed it, but he understood why I hadn't. And the weirdest part, I believed him not because he had proof, he didn't, but because my gut stopped screaming the second he said it. So I started digging. At first, I didn't know what I was looking for. I wasn't a hacker. I wasn't some conspiracy theorist. I was just a daughter who wanted to know what the hell actually happened. So I did something about it. I trained, got certified, became a licensed private investigator. Full-on PI, not the trench coat kind, the legal, boring paperwork kind. Digital forensics, record pulls, metadata, bank tracing. And once I had that in place, I moved home. I told Mom I'd lost my job, said I couldn't afford rent, said I needed a little help getting back on my feet. She rolled her eyes and told me I could have the laundry room. Perfect, while she handed me dish duty and made sure I contributed. I went looking, and eventually I found it. It started with an old laptop shoved behind some sweaters. Password protected, but nothing I couldn't get through. Inside were folders. Sloppy names like Legal One and Assets Backup and, I kid you not, Do Not Open. I opened, and there was a draft of the message, the fake one. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." Typed in a Word doc, saved 5 days before the date she claimed it was sent. There were notes in the margins, revisions. There was even a comment bubble that said, "Too dramatic." But that wasn't the worst part. I found emails between her and Mark from when they were still just friends, talking about how to make him look unstable, how to protect the money. And speaking of money, she claimed Dad had made a bad investment during the divorce, that half their assets had just disappeared. But in another folder, because of course she backed everything up, I found scanned bank records, wire transfers to a Belize account, fake shell companies, all set up under Mark's name. They stole everything, framed my dad, took the house, the business assets, the custody agreement, and left him with nothing but a reputation he didn't earn. So yeah, I printed it all, made copies, and gave one to my dad. The one I slid across the table at brunch. That was just a souvenir. Back to the present. 3 nights after I walked out, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Dad. He didn't say hi, just stood there with a tired smile and said, "I got the call. It's happening." The lawyer had filed everything, reopened the case, started the process to get the money, the house, the record cleared. It was already moving. He stepped inside. I made tea. We sat on the couch like it was a totally normal week. Then I said, "Do you want to know how I found it?" He nodded. So I told him, not the whole thing, not yet, but enough. When I was done, he just said, "You didn't have to do this." And I said, "I didn't do it for you. I did it for me." Then the text started, from Ryan. "What's going on? Are you seriously blowing up the family over ancient history? This is way too far. You made her cry." Then from Mom, one line, "You're not done. Don't think you're done. Charming." I didn't answer any of them because I knew exactly what was coming, and they had no idea just how much I had left to say. It didn't take long. The legal letter landed 2 days after Dad filed. Certified mail. Thick envelope, the kind that makes people go quiet when they see it in the mailbox. I wasn't there when it arrived, obviously, but I heard about the scream. Apparently Mom opened it in the kitchen, read the first page, and dropped her wine glass, full red midday.
Fuck!
Mark tried to play it cool, which was hilarious considering he was named directly on page 2. I can only imagine how fast he Googled what happens when offshore accounts get traced. And Ryan, poor Ryan, was still texting me like I was just going through something. You don't have to do this. We can fix it. Fix what exactly? The fake message? The stolen money? The fact that they treated me like a spare part for 20 years? Sorry, buddy. That ship burned. The court filings were airtight. Emails, drafts, bank records, all there in black and white. My folder wasn't just receipts. It was the whole damn audit. The judge moved quickly, not out of vengeance, just clarity. Said it was a pattern of deception that compromised custody, finances, and personal safety. Translation: they lied for years, repeatedly, on paper. The ruling? Full restitution. Every penny they stole had to be paid back, with penalties, with interest. They had to liquidate the house, the cars, the investment accounts. Mark even tried to argue that he didn't know what was happening, said he trusted his wife's financial planning, which would have been more convincing if he hadn't literally signed the wire transfers. They sold the house within 3 weeks, at a loss. My mom moved into a 2-bedroom condo with a leaky faucet and no insulation, and for once in her life, she didn't host a housewarming. But she wasn't done being dramatic. About a week after the ruling, she made one last swing. She created a Facebook account in my name. Same photo, same bio, even copied one of my old posts word for word. Then she started writing unhinged updates claiming Dad abused her, that I was unstable, and that we'd hacked her accounts. It was pathetic, also stupid, because it took about 15 minutes for the digital forensics guy to trace the IP address back to her house. Same Wi-Fi, same browser history, same laptop she used to stream her Pilates classes. The judge didn't even get angry. He just stared at her like she was a math problem with no solution. "Miss Hartwell," he said, "you fabricated a message, stole from your ex-husband, and now you're impersonating your daughter online." She tried to cry. It didn't work. Even Mark wouldn't look at her. As for Ryan, he vanished the second the money ran out. No loyalty, no apology, just a quiet unfollow on Instagram and, I assume, a frantic job search for something that didn't require a resume or accountability. He never texted again. Fine by me. Dad bought a house. Not a mansion, just a modest little place with a real yard and a porch that gets good light in the afternoon. He called it peaceful, which is code for not haunted by my ex-wife's voice echoing through the drywall. He invited me over the day he got the keys. When I walked in, he handed me a mug of coffee and said, "No big speech, just thanks." And that was enough. We sat in silence for a while, not awkward silence, just the kind where your body finally remembers it doesn't have to flinch anymore. He asked what I was going to do next. I told him, live, like I didn't have to build myself from scratch. He nodded. Good plan. A week later, I got an email from Mom. Yes, email, subject line. You'll understand one day. The message was about what you'd expect. Lots of, I did what I had to, and you betrayed your own family, and you always were ungrateful. She signed it. Love, Mom. I didn't reply. I just archived it and labeled the folder Unsolicited Fiction. There was no big announcement, no TikTok reveal, no essay on healing. I didn't want revenge. I wanted quiet. And that's exactly what I got. No more explaining myself, no more justifying why I felt like a guest in my own family. Just silence. A kitchen with real food. A living room that feels like mine. A dad who makes dumb jokes and never uses them to hurt me. They used to say I was a nobody. Said it to my face, behind my back, at brunch. But the funny thing about nobodies, we watch. Remember. We learn how systems work, especially broken ones. And when we finally speak, we don't scream. We bring documents. They said I didn't matter. Turns out I was the only one keeping track of everything. Some days I still wonder if I went too far, if I could have handled it more quietly. Maybe I should have just let it go and built my life without stirring up everything they tried to bury. But then I remember how long I stayed quiet, how much I let slide, how much they counted on me doing exactly that. So no, I don't regret it, but I still wonder what you think. Did I do the right thing? Would you have walked away or handed over the folder? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe.